Okay. Hello, and welcome back to my channel and to the series Journey to Med that I created to help prospective medical applicants achieve their goals and their dreams by getting an offer to UK medical universities. Today I will be talking to you about the second step of this whole medical application process journey type of thing, which is the exams. Yes, exams with an S, because there are two different exams that you can take, and it depends which one you will take. If you take both, if you only take one of them, will solely depend on which universities you apply to, because each university has an exam that they ask you to take, and it's not necessarily the same. So if you're interested in understanding more about both of the exams and which one you want to take, if you want to take only one or both of them, I will link a video that I have done down below. So today this video will be solely focused on the Bmat and kind of a guide to helping you prepare for this exam. So as always, I think that the best way to inform you on a topic and for me to explain things is through a series of questions that I have created myself. But again, if there's any question that you have that has not been answered here, please feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll try my best to answer it, or you can go on Instagram, contact me there through DMs. I will also try to answer it. And if there are a lot of other questions, I could also try to plan some sort of live Instagram thing. I don't know how you call that, like a live Instagram, where I can answer most of your questions. So now that all of this is out of the way, I think that we can get into this video and I can now answer some questions. So the first question is, what is the Bmat and who requires it? The Bmat stands for the Biomedical Admissions Test, and it is a 2-hour-long test that is required for courses such as medicine and dentistry. I actually believe that for dentistry, only one university in the UK requires it, and that's Leeds. And so, as I said, it's a 2-hour-long multiple-choice test where you can go to your exam center that you chose and you do your exam with pen and paper. This might seem pretty dumb for me to explain, but it is important because the UCAT, on the other hand, is a computer-based test where there is no pen and paper involved. The next question is, what are the different sections of the test? So this test is divided into 3 sections. Section 1 is called Aptitude and Skills. There are 35 questions on there and it lasts for an hour. They are multiple choice questions, most of them, and sometimes you might encounter a short answer question. Section 2 is Scientific Knowledge and Applications. It's 27 multiple choice questions or short answer questions, and it lasts for 30 minutes. And then the last section is Section 3, which is the writing task, where you have to write an essay on a A4 sheet of paper, and you have 30 minutes to do that. So one of my first tips right now is that you only get one paper. They will only ever give you one. If you mess up and you write something that you didn't want to write and you wrote like 5 lines and actually you just want to erase everything, then you lost 5 lines. Like, they're not going to give you a new paper. So really treat this paper like gold. Like, do not write anything on it before you have planned anything. Okay, so now we can move on to which universities use the Bmat. So to answer this question, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't know them off the top of my head, so I went online to the Medic portal to be exact, and I found a cohesive list of all of the universities in the UK that use the Bmat. So the UK universities that use the Bmat are the University of Oxford, the University of Leeds, the University of Cambridge, UCL, so the University College London, Lancaster University, Imperial College London, and Brighton and Sussex Medical School. Also, I found on the admissionstesting.org website, I found a whole list of all of the universities in the... I'm going to move this cup because this is going to annoy me. Of all the universities in the world that actually use the Bmat. So if you want to check that out, I will have the link to this website and this page on the website linked down below. Next, how important is the Bmat in my application? Okay, so this is a pretty difficult but easy question to answer. Difficult because every single university will have their entry requirements and will have specific, criteria that they want to meet. Some universities will weigh the Bmat enormously, while others will weigh it way less, and other things will count more, such as a personal statement or your work experience or other things like that. But as a rule of thumb, it is very, very important. Consider these exams, like the UCAT and the Bmat, as your passports or your entry tickets to getting an interview. Because realistically, if you are applying for medicine, you have the grades. You will have the predicted grades that are required of you. You will have stellar grades, everything like that. You will most probably would have done the work experience because you know about it and you watched my video, also linked down below or in the I don't know which side. But the thing that will give you your entry ticket in most universities and in most cases is the exam. So you really want to work hard on that exam and give it the time it needs for you to get the grades you need to get an interview invitation. Because imagine if you have everything. You have the grades, you have the work experience, your personal statement is just on point, it's magnificent. You have all of the extracurricular activities you want, but the only thing that you're missing is that you missed the exam. Like the exam, your grade was not high enough. Then, you won't get an interview invitation. So really, really treat it as a very important and key moment in your application process. Because that's like your tickets to like getting an interview and potentially afterwards getting an offer. The next question is, how long does it take to prepare the Bmat and when should you start? Okay, so for me, I wrote down that it was a pretty variable question. It really depends on you and how long do you usually need to take to prepare an exam. But as a rule of thumb, and that is very variable, I would say that you would need maybe 3 to 4 months to prepare it correctly. And I separated this 3 to 4 months in 2 different sections. The first 2 months would be a loose preparation, the loosely prepping part. And then the next 2 months would be the intense work. And so for the loose part of the preparation, I don't know why I would call it the loose part anyways, I actually mean that that's the moment where you start to actually be interested in the exam, understand the structure, understand the question types, understand what's required of you, start learning the content, especially for section 2, because in section 2 there was a lot of content that you need to know in physics, chemistry, math, and biology. So during these first 2 months, you're setting the foundation. Your brain starts to understand, okay, you're going to do the Bmat. You need to learn all of these different things in biology, chemistry, physics, and math. You know kind of the question types. You've already practiced a bit of questions. You're setting the foundations. And then in the next 2 months, you're doing the intense work of actually doing only practice questions, preparing, understanding, looking at the corrections, preparing everything so that you're able to really, really improve. And you're doing really intense work every day, so you're constantly improving. Just like if you were going, to the gym, you would do this very, very frequently so that you can actually see effects on your body. Well, that's the same thing. So you would have to do this often, every day, to see the effects and see that you're actually improving, and that's a very positive sign. But then again, it's very variable, because I think that the most variable part is the loose period, because it really depends on section 2, really, because section 2 is a really content heavy. You need to know a lot of different things in each of these subjects that you need to know. And if you're like me and you are not in the UK schooling system, the language that you use at school is not English, then you're going to need more time to learn the content, because there's some parts of the content that you would have never known and never learned before. And so you're going to have to learn that. Whereas, if you're in the UK system, most of you would have done a GCSEs, and so most of them. But then again, most of you would have dropped physics for A levels, and so you would need some freshening up, basically. Then, when is the exam? So the exam has 2 different dates. I think there's also one in February, but it's not a very famous date, and I don't really know much about it. But there's 2 key important dates. So there's one in September. So September, the first week of September or the last week of August, it's usually there. Or one, not the last week, the last day of August or the first day of September, or the last day of October or the first day of November. So there's 2 dates, one in September, one in November. And how do you choose between the 2 solely depends on which universities you want to apply to. Because I think that Oxford University does not accept any students that have done the Bmat in September. They only want students that have sat the Bmat in November. which means that when you apply for universities, you have to be very careful. You have to weigh the pros and the cons, because in my opinion, I would 100 times more sit the BMAT in September, which is what I have done, because it means that you have your results on the 21st of September, something like that, which means that you then apply for your UCAS deadline and for your universities of choice, your 4 universities of choice, while knowing which grades you have. And that's an incredible advantage, because it allows you to know if you're, within the cutoff range, and if you have like a feasible chance of getting an interview. Whereas if you do the exam in November, this means that you have chosen your universities without even knowing your score. So you're kind of applying blindly, and you have to have a very high confidence that you will ace the BMAT. Whereas if you do the BMAT in September and you don't do so well, but you do really well in the UCAT, then you can just switch and apply to only all UCAT schools. More of this, I think I'll talk about more of this in the video where I compare the BMAT and the UCAT and which one you should take. The next question is, how do you prepare for the BMAT? So actually, to answer this question, because it's a very broad and there's a lot of information that needs to go into there, I separated it into 3 different sections. So the resources I used to prepare, some specific information of what I did for each section, and then my kind of workflow during the intense months and the intense moments of my prep. Also, if you want me to focus and if you want me to do videos on each section precisely, I will be happy to do so, but just tell me if you want that in the comments down below. So the resources that I used 5 different resources. So for actually the loose part of the preparation, I was part of an academy that really helped me understand the structure of the exam, and what are the different question types, how to approach the question type, how to help me also understand the content for section 2, because most of it was very new to me, especially the terminology. So that was really helpful, but it was only helpful for the loose part, and there are a lot of different resources online and different books that could do the same job as well. So you don't have to join an academy. That's kind of my point. Then there was Ali Abdal's crash course on the BMAT, which was extremely helpful for me, especially for section 1. Section 2 was not as helpful, especially for biology and math, but for the physics and chemistry was pretty helpful, and it was amazing. I really urge you to do this crash course. It does cost £99, but for me it was worth every penny. It helped me so much for section 1. When I found this resource, I really felt like, okay, I finally have a step-by-step approach. I finally have a way to answer these questions and have it right almost every single time. And also, if you think that £99 is too expensive and you don't have the money, which is totally fine, I think that Ali has options to have bursaries or something like that. And so if that's something you're interested in, you might want to check that out as well. I have also left the link down below of the crash course. I might as well just stop saying the link down below. Everything I'm talking about will be linked down below. Then the next resource that I used was a BMAT Ninja, which is an online kind of question bank, also created by Ali Abdal and his team. So in this website, he put a lot of different BMAT past paper questions and arranged them so that you can practice, just loosely practice questions. Either you do 10, 15, I'm not too sure how it worked. It was when I prepared a year ago. But then you can also have them timed. There's the time on the side so you can see how long you're actually taking for each question. And the most helpful thing in this website is that he put the past papers, so you can actually do the past papers in 2 hours for section 1 and section 2, because section 3 you can't actually submit your essay that you're writing. But also the really helpful part is that there are corrections. I think you have to pay a small fee to have access to all of the corrections, but it is so worth it, because it means that when you have a mistake, when you make a mistake, or when you have something right, you can always understand exactly why it was right or exactly why what you wrote was wrong. And that's extremely important to progress. Then the next thing I bought was a BMAT past paper worked solution book, volume 2, that had all of the corrections from 2011 to 2017 BMAT past papers. And I think they had both the BMAT September and BMAT November issues on there. So that was extremely helpful. You might think that it was like kind of redundant because I had both the Bmat Ninja, which had corrections, and this book. But to me, it wasn't really redundant because when I didn't understand something on Bmat Ninja, I always had another resource to like explain it to me in another way, which was really helpful. And also this book was of a great help when it came to section 3 because it gave a lot of different like key points to address for each essay questions from like 2011 to 2017, which kind of gives you an idea of what the examiners are looking for and how many points you have to make that support the arguments, how many points you have to make that refute the argument, basically. Also, another thing that was extreme, I don't know how many times I can say helpful, but I mean, all of these resources, if I've used them, it's because they've helped me, was the Bmat website, like the admission testing website, where you can log on and then you have this incredible resource called the Assumed Knowledge Guide that helps you for section 2, where they write basically everything you need to know for section 2 with also explanations. For example, I think the first thing you need to know in biology is the different types of cells. So then they would explain all the different types of cells and how they compare and contrast, for example. They also have questions in there which can help you test your understanding. Also, the Cambridge Assessment website, I also used that, which was pretty good to give you like kind of the broad information. And I would strongly suggest that you go on that website and that you read all of the, help that they have there, all of the preparation guides, all of these different things that could really help you. Afterwards, now I'm going to move to like the resources that I bought, that I had with me, but I didn't really use. So I wouldn't suggest that you buy them. So the first one was this book, the Get Into Medical School 700 Bmat practice questions book. Wow, I can't speak. And that was actually not that useful because, if you look inside, it's only like questions, like as it says, there's like 700 questions. There are the corrections on there, but it's not past paper questions. And for me, there's already so many past paper questions. It goes from 2003 all the way to 2019. So we have a lot of questions to go through. And before you actually get to like finishing these questions and actually fully understanding them, having done these questions more than once, you won't need this. So you'll only need this if you've done all of the past papers at least twice, understood it all, and you need more questions to like keep your brain, in the movement. But if you've never reached to that point, then you won't need this. So don't buy this out of the get-go, on the get-go. And then the next resource was this book, the How to Prepare the Bmat book. This one, neither. I didn't really use it that much for the same reason, is that I had already so many other questions to go through with past papers, and the fact that I was also spending a lot of time learning the content for section 2, it wasn't really useful for me. However, this one was more useful than this one because it has a section in the beginning where they have like chapters on like physics review, for example, or maths review, where they help you understand in like very simple ways like the most important things you need to know, and that would help me just to brush up on my knowledge when I kind of forgot. So as you see, I wrote like some definitions, some formulae on there, all of that things. I wrote it on there, but it wasn't, if I didn't have it, it would have not made such a difference. It also helped me to do some more questions on the same theme that I was struggling with because their questions, they were pretty good. I mean, yeah. This one was okay-ish. You can buy it, but like don't buy it thinking that it's going to be like the resource to go through. The other resources that I talked about were better than this one. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the part where I'm talking more precisely about what I have done for each section of the Bmat, how I prepared. So section 1 of the Bmat has like 2 different types of questions, mostly the problem-solving questions and the critical thinking questions. Usually critical thinking questions are easier than problem-solving questions, and since you have 35 questions, 1 hour, you have approximately 1 minute and 40 seconds per question. This is a lot compared to all of the other sections in the Bmat and compared to all of the UCAT, especially the UCAT. Which means that for me, one of my top tips would be try to spend less time on the critical thinking questions, which are usually easier to have, and save up a bulk of time that you can transfer to the problem solving questions, which are usually harder. So as I've mentioned above, what really saved me with this section was Ali Abdaal's crash course. That was really, really helpful. It helped me follow a simple approach, a simple step-by-step approach that would kind of work in every case scenario, which was amazing. Then for section 2, so that's a 30-minute section, 27 questions, so you approximately have 1 minute per question. And as I said, it brushes on all of the knowledge of GCSE level for physics, math, biology, and chemistry. So for this one, as I said and mentioned many times before, I did not take the GCSEs. I was not in the UK schooling system, so I didn't do that. So I had to really learn the content well. And so that for me was the toughest section, because I also had to learn the terminology, the equivalences of how you say something in French and how do you say it in English. And so to prepare this, I bought the GCSE books on chemistry, bio, and physics to keep up to date with the knowledge that I needed to know, but as well I really used the assumed knowledge guide to understand the content and at least see everything once to know what I needed to know. And also I would do a lot of practice questions to see what were the kind of topics that would always come back, and always look at the corrections so I would understand it very deeply. Then section 3, for me, that was the part of the exam where the academy really helped me more, because I was able to write a few essays, and they could correct it for me and give me feedback. Again, this is not really necessary. I know that there's a lot of different websites out there that you can do that with. If that's really something that you want to do, then you can just submit 1 or 2 essays. But I mean, that's not really I don't think that the Bmat are really looking for literature, they're looking for your ideas and see if you have the ability to think critically and cohesively, because you only have 1 page, as I said. And so for me, I practiced a lot in writing my ideas and my arguments in short sentences, and not as long, and not developing so much everything, because you just don't have the space. So you have to go directly to the point, and that takes a bit of practice, but once you get it, it's usually fine. Also, what I did was that for every topic in the book that I said that I purchased, which had corrections of the essays, I went through all of them, and I looked at the essay questions, essay prompts that I felt were coming up often, the same idea, or the ones that really appealed to me the most. And then I made these little note cards where I wrote on them the prompt, then the definition, then all of some of the arguments that they had, which could be helpful for me. So that really helped me organize my way of thinking, which really helped me in the exam. So I knew okay, maybe you put two points that support the argument, 2 points that refute the argument, then your opinion. All of that was pretty helpful. And it also gave me a lot of ideas of what I could talk about. So I kind of had some arguments in my head, or some ideas that I already had set, so I didn't have to think too much. I also watched a few videos on YouTube and on the further resources page on the admissiontesting.org website, where they talk about what the examiners are looking for, and also I would look at the grading system, so I knew what they were looking for. That was really important. And then I'm going to talk to you about my workflow during the intense month of work that preceded the exam. So usually I would work 2 to 4 hours on the Bmat, because I was doing the Bmat and the UCAT at the same time. So I had to like separate my day between UCAT and Bmat. And I would do like a few practice questions on the Bmat Ninja. And then I would usually do the practice questions of the past paper. I went through all of the past papers up until 2013 once. And then from 2009 up until 2018, I did all of these twice. And I really made it a point to do them twice, for at least up until 2009. So the first time I went through, it was not timed. The second time, it was timed. Also, another tip that I have is that it would be a good idea to keep track of your scores on each past paper you do. So I did this on a Google Sheet, Google Doc thing, where I wrote everything that I did and the scores. So For example, what I did was I did it both for the Bmat and the UCAT. So what happened was that I would write I had like a column, as you can see, like for the date. Then I had a column for section 1, section 2, and then the essay. And then like color coding system with like orange, which was when I did 20 questions, because like the Bmat Ninja, as I said, you can decide how many questions you want to do. So you can either do like 15, 5, 10, 20. So then I would color code how many I did and then write down the score I got. And when I did mock exams, I also color coded them, and I wrote like the date of which mock exam I did when. And then when I did a redo, I would write it as well. And so I could see that I was improving most of the time. So this was a really good thing for me to look through because it kept me on my toes and showed me where I was improving and where I needed more practice. So for example, you can see that on the 2012 redo section, I got a 4.7 in section 1, whereas most of the time I was getting like above 6 or around like 5. And so that was probably a moment where I thought to myself, like, okay, you need to like practice a bit more section 1. And I think that was kind of an eye-opener for me at this point. Also, it was pretty amazing to see when the first time I did the 2016 past paper, I got a 5.17, and the second time I got a 6.3. And similarly, even though when I redid the 2012 one, I got 4.7, the first time I did it, I got a 3.29, which shows that I still improved from the first time. So it was just a nice way to track my work, and I would suggest that you do that if that's something you're interested in. The next question is, what grades do you need to get an interview offer? So honestly, this really, really, really depends on the university. Some universities will weigh the Bmat very, very highly, and that's going to be literally your entry ticket to the interview. But others would have a cutoff, like if you're above this cutoff, you'll get an offer, an interview. And others won't weigh it as much. So what I would suggest is that you spend some time looking through the universities you want to apply to, and looking at the cutoffs. First of all, like looking at how they use the Bmat for the entry requirements, and then secondly, if they use a cutoff, look at the previous years, try to find on the internet, on forums, or on their website if it's already advertised there, the cutoff scores of like the past 5 years, so you kind of have an idea of the average of what you need to get above to have a feasible chance. Also, an interesting resource to have is that you can also go on the type on Google the explanation of Bmat results plus the year you want that, and this will give you you can have a PDF from the testing.org website, and this will give you an in-depth explanation and graphs on how well the cohort that year did on the Bmat. And so I'm gonna put it on the screen there, so that you can see what I'm talking about, and so that you can see how well or how badly the cohort did that year. And so you have kind of like where the bulk of people, like what is the score of most people. So for example, in 2019, you can see that most people got a 4 to 4.5 and a 4.5 to 5 in section 2, whereas most in section 1 got a 4 to 4.5. Whereas in 2018, most people got a 4 to 4.5 or a 5 to 5.5 in section 2 and a 4 to 4.5 in section 1. So this could actually show that maybe section 2 in 2019 was slightly harder than section 2 2018. But it still shows you that most people would get somewhere between 4 and 5.5 most years on both sections. It also gives you the grading system and how the examiners graded the essay, which is pretty interesting as well. Also, it's important to remember, if you are an international student applying to UK schools, your cutoffs will most likely be higher, so you will have to work, I guess, a bit harder on the exams to also get a feasible chance. And that's due to the fact that most universities have less places for international students. Then I guess I'm going to talk to you about my mistakes and how you can avoid them. So my biggest mistake was that I didn't practice early enough, knowing the fact that I had to practice the UCAT and the Bmat at the same time, and the fact that I didn't do GCSEs. So that kind of, I didn't actually really know how much I had to really practice for section 2. when I only got into like the really intense part, which also brings me back to the fact that it's important to have a few months before you actually start intensely practicing to understand like section 2, try to get familiar with the content, learn it, learn the exam structure, etc. So you are not surprised like I was. And so yeah, just start practicing early, especially if you're like me and either you forgot the content of GCSEs, which is possible, or you've never done GCSEs before and you need to like have a brush up on the content and the terminology in English. Then I think that maybe you're interested in my scores. So for my scores, I got a 5.4 in section 1, a 4.2 in section 2, and a 3.5A in section 3. So I was pretty happy with section 1 and section 3, but I was pretty unhappy with section 2 because if you, like I showed you like my Google Sheets thing, and I was always getting above 5.5s during my practices consistently at the end. So I was pretty surprised that I got a 4.2, knowing the fact that I came out of the exam telling my dad that section 2 was, I aced it basically, and section 1 was pretty, I don't really understand, I don't think I'll get a good grade, and in the end it was the opposite. So you never really know. But I think our average scores, they reflect my work, and I was still proud of them after my little disappointment of section 2. But I was pretty happy that I'd done the exam and that I went through it. Finally getting to the end, so these are the last 2 questions, which is what to do on exam day. So what to do on exam day, for me, the most important thing is stay calm. Realize that you've worked to the biggest of your potential, you've worked hard, you've done everything you could do, so now you just have to be calm and apply everything you learned to, the situation, and just stay calm during the room. Remember in your mind, how many minutes you have for each section and each question, things like that. Prepare your bag early in advance so you have everything you need. Check that you have your ID card, check that you have like the paper to certify that you are doing the exam on that day. Check how long it takes to get to the exam, because all of these things will reduce uncertainties and will allow you to arrive in the exam well and not stressed. And just try to minimize your stress levels, because you don't want to, the last thing you want is to start panicking in that room. And then the last question is what to do after the exams. So for me, what to do after the exams is simple. Celebrate. Celebrate and be proud of what you've done. Be proud of your accomplishment. Be proud of the months of work you've put into it. And just have a moment to be like, okay, I've done this and I've done it. Like, I'm done with it. I can breathe. But then also I think it's important just for to like write a few, like the key arguments you wrote about in your essay down on a paper so you don't forget them, because I've heard that some universities will ask questions about what you wrote on the essay during your interview, so it's always good to remember what you wrote and not be like, oh, I forgot that I wrote that. You know what I mean? So just do that when you still remember it, and then I guess that's it. And now all you can do is wait for your results eagerly and continue with your application process. So yeah, I'm done. I'm officially done. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you want to watch other videos that I've done in this Journey to Med series. There's the UCAT versus the Bmat video, there's the UCAT video on its own, and there's a lot of other videos arriving on the personal statement, which universities to choose, big interviews, and a lot of other different things. So yeah, thank you.